The hallway light dies right as the lock clicks open from the outside. Rory freezes in the dark, barefoot on cold floorboards, one hand wrapped around a heavy ring that does not belong in an apartment with peeling paint and a humming fridge. The door swings inward without a kick, without a shout, just quiet confidence, like whoever is coming in already owns the building and everything inside it, including her. Two shapes fill the doorway first, broad shoulders and black coats, scanning the shadows like they are checking a perimeter. Then he steps in behind them, calm, composed, and completely out of place in this cramped space. Calder Harken. He does not raise his voice. He does not bark her name. He simply looks at her, like he already knows every escape route and every secret corner she could possibly run to. The two men with him shift, one staying in the hall, one sliding inside and throwing the deadbolt with a lazy flick of his wrist. Metal taps home. The sound is soft and final. Rory's chest tightens as the taste of rust and old dust fills her throat. The broken ceiling fan ticks overhead, pushing around air that suddenly feels too thick. Calder's gaze drops to her fist. "You're holding it," he says. His tone is quiet, but the room bends around it. Rory does not answer. Sweat gathers at the back of her neck, sliding under her t-shirt as the ring's cool edge bites into her palm. She can feel the engraved crest against her skin even without looking, sharp lines, raised metal, weight that doesn't match her life. She steps back until the back of her knees hit the bed. The mattress frame creaks loud in the silence. "Put it on the table," Calder says. He does not move toward her. He just waits. His security watches the window and the hallway with trained stillness, like this is routine, like showing up in a broke woman's apartment with a lockpick, and a mission happens 3 times a week. Rory's heart pounds so loud she can hear it in her ears, mixing with the distant buzz of a TV from a lower floor. Her brain screams for choices, scream, throw the ring, jump out the window, but her body stands locked in place. "Why are you here?" she asks. The words scrape out of a dry throat. Calder tilts his head slightly, studying her like a puzzle he already solved hours ago. His dark sweater fits snug against his shoulders, his shoes are spotless despite the wet city streets outside, and there's not a single thing about him that looks accidental. He should be in a glass office somewhere high above this neighborhood, or in a boardroom where people lean forward when he speaks. Instead, he is standing 3 feet from her bed, breathing in the same stale air. "Because that ring," he says, "doesn't belong to you." Rory laughs once, short and harsh. "It was my mother's." Calder's jaw tightens, just enough for her to notice. "Your mother worked for my father." The floor seems to tilt for a second. Rory grabs the bed frame with her free hand, feeling rough wood under her fingers. The hallway behind Calder stays unnaturally quiet, no footsteps, no doors opening, no neighbors yelling. It is like the building itself knows better than to interrupt. "You think this is a game?" he asks. "Do you?" she shoots back. His eyes narrow, not in anger but in calculation. He takes one slow step closer, closing some of the space between them without ever looking away from her face. The smell of rain and cold air clings to his clothes, clean and sharp against the musty scent of her apartment. Rory's fingers twitch around the ring. Her pulse climbs even higher. "Rory," he says, using the name she gave him. "You don't have time to argue with me." She flinches, not at his tone, but at the truth in it. Her phone is still in her other hand, screen lighting up her knuckles. His last message sits on the display: "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here because you have something that belongs to my family." Before her mind can catch up, A hard thud echoes somewhere deeper in the building. Not from her floor. Below? Then another, heavier, traveling up through the stairwell. Calder's head turns toward the door. His security man in the hall straightens, one hand pressing to his earpiece. 2 minutes, the man says. Rory's stomach drops. 2 minutes for what? Calder looks back at her, and this time, there is no mask. No smooth, cold patience. Something sharper lives in his eyes now, something that tastes like urgency and long-buried anger. Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe, and really I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. His security man steps fully inside now, leaving the hallway empty. The deadbolt is already locked. The chain slides across with a quick metallic scrape. Rory's tongue sticks to the roof of her mouth. She imagines the stairs outside, the narrow landing, the busted exit sign at the end of the hall that never worked. They are coming up, Calder says. He nods toward the door, as calmly as if he is pointing at a calendar. You have something that proves you are not just some woman standing between me and the exit. That ring is a claim. And the people heading up those stairs are paid to erase claims. Rory's skin goes cold. Her mind flashes back to her mother's face the week before the accident, tired, jaw clenched, double-checking the locks 3 times in one night. She remembers the showbox hidden behind old blankets, the way her mother's hands shook when she taped it shut. You're lying, Rory whispers. Calder steps close enough that she can see the tiny scar near his hairline, the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw, the steady rise and fall of his chest. Your mother died because she hid you, he says. She kept you off paper. Off cameras. Away from my father's lawyers. That ring is what she kept instead. Another heavy footstep shakes the hallway. This time it is closer. Maybe 1 floor below. The light under the door shifts, as though someone has paused on the landing. You want to stand here and test if I'm lying? Calder asks. Or do you want to move? Rory's throat burns. Every instinct pushes in different directions. Her pride wants to shove him out. Her fear wants to hide under the bed like a child. Something else, raw, wild, tired of being powerless, pushes her to demand answers right now, before anyone else touches that doorknob. What exactly am I to you? She asks. Calder does not hesitate. You, he says, are the name that breaks my family. For a moment, the world goes quiet again. No footsteps. No fan ticking. No traffic from the street. Just that sentence hanging in the air between them. Rory grips the ring so hard her nails dig into her own palm. The metal warms under her skin, carrying a history she never agreed to. The hallway explodes with movement. Boots pound against wood, climbing fast. A low voice murmurs something outside her door. Calder's security man steps in front of the peephole, blocking the view. Calder leans in, close enough that she can feel his breath. Last chance, Rory, he says. Do you trust me for the next 60 seconds? Her answer catches in her chest as the first knock, slow, controlled, and nothing like a neighbor's, lands on the other side of the door. The second knock is harder. The wood shivers, dust drifting from the frame. Rory jerks her head toward the door, heart slamming against her ribs. The sound is too measured to belong to a random visitor. Whoever stands outside is not lost. They are sure. They are patient. Calder lifts a finger toward his security man without looking away from the door. The man nods once and shifts his stance, weight balanced, eyes sharp. "Don't speak," Calder says quietly. Rory swallows air that feels like it is scraping her lungs. The ring sits hot in her palm now, imprinting its shape into her skin. Sweat slips down her spine. The room, small as it is, suddenly feels like a trap, one door, one window that sticks whenever she tries to open it. A fire escape rusted into uselessness. She thinks of the job interview she planned for Monday, the cheap blazer still in its plastic bag by the closet, and how none of that matters if she never makes it out of tonight. The third knock does not come. Instead, a new sound slides under the door, metal sliding against metal, a tool testing the lock from the outside. Rory's breath catches. She looks at Calder, waiting to see fear, maybe even panic. It never shows. His jaw tightens, but his hands stay loose at his sides. He has seen this before. "They know you're here," Rory whispers. "They know someone is," he corrects. "They don't know what you're holding." As if on cue, the ring shifts in her hand, reminding her of its presence. Rory suddenly wants to throw it across the room, to hurl it out the window, to get rid of the weight tying her to a world she never asked to join. But her fingers refuse to let go. Her mother hid this for years. Her mother died with this hidden. The sound at the door stops. Silence stretches out, long and thin. Rory's skin prickles. The security man to her left raises two fingers, signaling something she does not understand, but Calder clearly does. "They are checking the hall," the man murmurs. "Two of them. Maybe three." Rory's mind races. How many does Calder have? 2 guards. Maybe more outside. How many does the enemy have? She pictures men in sharp suits with soft hands and cold eyes, the kind of people who never touch violence directly, but have no trouble paying for it. "How did they find me?" she asks. Calder glances at her. There is no time, but he still answers, voice low. "Paper trail from the hospital," he says. "Your mother listed a false address years ago. Someone finally noticed the hole. When I saw your face today, I knew they were already looking in the right city." Another scrape at the lock. This time, the doorknob turns slowly, testing resistance. Whoever is on the other side is not trying to hide. They expect this to open. "It's your fault they are here, then," Rory says. Her voice shakes, but the words land heavy. Calder does not flinch. His eyes hold hers for a second, and for the first time she sees something like regret. It is buried under steel, but it is there. "I moved faster than they did," he says. "That's the only reason you're still breathing." The knob stops turning. A soft murmur. A quiet cough. Then a small rectangle of white slides under the door. Rory's breath stutters. A paper. Folded clean. The edge catches on the floorboard near the threshold. Calder's security man steps forward, but Calder holds up a hand to stop him. "They want you to read it," he says. "For what?" Rory asks. "Why would they send a note if they can just break in?" "Because they like rules," Calder answers. "Little performances make them feel civilized." Rory stares at the paper. The last time she watched someone push an envelope under a door, it was a final notice from the landlord. This feels different. Heavy. Intentional. She takes a step toward it before she can stop herself. Calder's voice cuts across the room. "Don't pick it up. She freezes. You think it's a trick? She asks. It's proof, he says. If you touch it, you give them what they need. Your prince with their words. Rory's hand curls tighter around the ring. So what do we do? Stand here until they get bored. They don't get bored, Calder says. They get paid. Time stretches again. The air in the room seems to thicken. Rory's legs ache, but she does not move to sit. If she sits, it feels too much like giving up ground. The smell of sweat, dust, and city air mixes into something sharp enough to taste. From the hall, a soft knock comes again, one knuckle this time, almost gentle. A voice follows, smooth and polite, like the start of a customer service call. Miss Rivera. Rory's lungs forget how to work. Miss Rory Rivera, this is Thomas Hale. I represent the Harken family board. Her last name in his mouth feels like a weapon. Calder's head drops for a second, as if hearing exactly who is outside confirms the worst. Please open the door, the voice continues. We have documents for you to sign. No one wants any trouble here. Rory's heart hammers so hard she feels lightheaded. Documents. Sign. The words claw at her brain, dragging up images of contracts, fine print, her mother's anxious eyes when she refused to explain why certain envelopes stayed sealed in a kitchen drawer. Calder steps closer to her again, his body turning slightly so that if the door flies open, he is between her and the frame. You open that door, he says quietly, and they make you disappear on paper before they ever touch you in person. Rory's voice cracks. Disappear how? They file your silence, Calder says. They erase your claim. By the time anyone notices, your name belongs to them. The man outside knocks again, just as soft. Miss Rivera, we know you're in there. Your mother left you in a complicated position. We are here to help. Rory squeezes her eyes shut for a second. Help. The word curls like smoke. Her mother's last voicemail flashes in her mind, the one with the cut-off sentence she replayed over and over, if anything happens, don't sign. Then static. Her eyes fly open. She looks at Calder. What exactly do they lose if I don't sign? She asks. This time, he does not hold back. Billions, he says. The word hangs in the air, bigger than the room, bigger than her life. The silence that follows is thick enough to choke on. The man outside clears his throat politely. Miss Rivera, he says, if you don't open this door in the next 30 seconds, we will have to escalate. Rory looks at the clock glowing faintly on her nightstand. The seconds tick down, green numbers counting a life she did not know she was risking. She has never had 30 seconds feel so short. Or so expensive. The countdown begins in her chest before it reaches the door. Rory hears the word, escalate, and every muscle in her body tightens. The digital clock on the nightstand ticks to the next minute, but in her mind she hears the man outside measuring time in a different way, 30 seconds to decide whether she is going to be a name on a contract or a body on a floor. Her tongue tastes like metal. Her heartbeat thunders against the base of her throat. Calder moves first. He crosses the space to her tiny kitchen in 3 controlled steps and pulls open the drawer where she keeps mismatched cutlery and old takeout menus. He does not touch the knives. Instead, he grabs the roll of black tape at the back and tears off a strip with a sharp rip that slices through the silence. Give me your phone, he says. Rory hesitates, then slaps it into his palm. Her hands are slick with sweat. The screen is still lit, the last message from him glowing faintly. I'm the only predator who's trying to keep you alive. Calder presses buttons quickly, disables the sound, and slides it into his own pocket. Hey, she starts. You want them to ping your location, he asks. You want every tower in this block to tell them exactly where to point in the morning. Her protest dies. She had not even thought about that. She had been thinking about the door, the ring, the man outside who knew her full name. 20 seconds, the voice in the hall calls, still calm. Calder turns to his security man. Window. The man shakes his head once. Alley's covered. They've got two at the back, at least. Car engines running. Rory's knees weaken. The room smells like fear now, sharp and sour, cutting through the old grease and dust like a new layer. Her fingers twitch around the ring. The metal feels almost alive in her hand, pulsing with a history she never asked for. 15 seconds. Rory stares at the door. She pictures it flying open, men in suits stepping over the threshold with pleasant smiles and hard eyes, folders in hand, pens ready. She knows how that story goes. She has seen enough cheap crime dramas in background noise to understand. The real damage is done with ink long before anyone reaches for a weapon. She looks at Calder. Tell me the truth, she says, voice shaking. Why you? He frowns. What? Why are you the one standing in my apartment? She demands. Why do you care if I vanish? If your family loses money? For a second, resentment flashes across his features, bright and honest. I don't care about their money, he says. I care about control. 10 seconds, the man outside calls, still polite. Rory lets out a rough breath. So I'm a piece on your board, she says. Yes, Calder answers. But you're also the only piece they didn't know existed until today. That gives you power if you don't hand it away in the next. A loud thud hits the door, cutting him off. Not a knock this time. A warning. The wood jumps in its frame. Rory flinches, heart slamming into her ribs. 5, the voice says. Calder steps closer, his presence filling her space again. Rory, listen to me, he says, each word clipped. Once they see your face, there is no pulling you back into the shadows. You open that door, you sign, you pretend you're safe, and 6 months from now you have an accident like your mother did. Or you refuse and they skip the paperwork. Rory's stomach twists. Her mother's small car upside down on a highway flashes in her mind, the news report calling it a tragedy and nothing more. 3. Calder's eyes lock onto hers. Or, he says, we make you a problem they can't quietly erase. How? By making you public before they touch you. 2. Rory stares at him. Public. The word rattles through her mind, full of cameras and headlines and strangers who do not care about her life, but care deeply about the scandal. She hates it. She fears it. But she understands one thing. It is harder to erase someone everyone is watching. 1. The handle turns hard. Calder moves. He grabs Rory by the wrist, the one holding the ring, and pulls her sideways just as the door explodes inward, the chain snapping with a metallic scream. Wood slams into the wall. 2 men in tailored suits fill the doorway, one already reaching inside his jacket. Rory hits the floor beside the bed, shoulder slamming into the frame. Pain sparks through her arm. The ring flies from her hand and skids across the floor, spinning once before stopping in the thin strip of light from the hall. Everyone sees it at the same time. The man in front freezes. His eyes drop to the ring. For a heartbeat, the world holds its breath. Then his smooth expression cracks, the polite cover sliding away to reveal something colder. "There it is," he says. The ring sits in the dirt and dust of the floor like it does not understand what it is worth. Rory stares at it from where she lies half under the bed, cheek pressed against the rough wood, breathing ragged. Her shoulder throbs from the impact. Splinters dig into her arm. Calder kneels between her and the intruders, one knee on the floor, one foot braced, body angled to block their line of sight. His security man stands near the window, one hand inside his coat, eyes locked on the men in the doorway. The suited man who spoke, Thomas Hale, if the voice matches the name, takes a careful step into the apartment. He lifts his hands, palms visible, a practiced gesture that looks friendly from far away and dangerous up close. The second man stays in the hall, watching angles, checking for witnesses. "Mr. Harken," Hale says, as if they have just run into each other at a charity event. "You got here fast." Calder's mouth tightens. "Slower than I wanted," he says. Rory can't see his face from this angle, only the tense set of his shoulders and the way his fingers curve slightly, ready for a grab, a push, anything. She smells the tang of fresh splintered wood and the faint cologne from the men at the door, a clean, expensive scent that does not belong in this building. "This is an unnecessary mess," Hale continues, looking around the room like it is an inconvenience. "The board sent me with simple papers and a generous offer. All Miss Rivera had to do was open the door." Rory's blood runs hot at his tone. Like her life is a scheduling issue. She pushes herself up onto one elbow, ignoring the jolt of pain in her shoulder. "You broke into my home," she says. Hale's gaze slides to her, eyebrows lifting, as if he is pleasantly surprised she can talk. "We were concerned for your safety," he says. "You've been misled about your position." Calder lets out a quiet laugh with no humor in it. "She's been misled," he says. "By who?" "The woman who kept her breathing this long." Rory's throat tightens. Her mother's face flashes in her mind again, tired and determined. Hale's smile does not reach his eyes. "Your father wanted this handled cleanly, Calder," he says. "You complicating things does not help your standing." Rory's heart stutters. "Father. Not Mr. Harken. Father." Calder's shoulders go even stiffer. "My father wanted this hidden," he says. "There's a difference." Hale's gaze flicks down to the ring on the floor, then back up. "The ring is a family artifact," he says. "It belongs in the vault, not in the hands of a young woman who doesn't understand what it represents." Rory shifts, anger starting to cut through fear. "Then explain it," she says. Both men look at her again. Calder glances over his shoulder, and for once, he does not look like the calm one in the room. He looks like someone trapped between two fires. "Your mother," Hale says slowly, "was a housekeeper." Rory's jaw clenches. "She was more than that." "In the legal sense," he continues smoothly, "she was staff. What happened between her and Mr. Harken Sr. was unfortunate." Rory feels the words like a slap. Unfortunate. Her mother's entire life, her fear, her secrecy, her death on a highway, unfortunate. Hale nods toward the ring. "That piece of jewelry is from a broken promise. An old man's mistake. The board's job is to make sure that mistake doesn't damage thousands of employees and shareholders." We are prepared to compensate you generously for any emotional distress in exchange for your cooperation. Compensate. The word coils in her gut. You mean pay me to shut up, she says. Hale's smile widens just a fraction. We prefer phrases like settlement and confidentiality, he says. You sign the papers, you walk away with more money than you've ever seen, and no one has to argue about bloodlines in public. Rory almost laughs. Her rent is overdue. Her fridge holds condiments and a single takeout box she has reheated twice. Money has been the one constant ache in her life. But now, with the ring on the floor and two powerful men arguing over what to call her existence, the offer tastes sour. Calder speaks before she can. You forgot the part where she signs away her right to her own name, he says. And where the board keeps full control with no questions asked. Hale's eyes harden. Your name is already on enough documents, Mr. Harken. He says it like a warning. Rory looks between them. The pieces begin to click together, Calder's urgency, his talk of control, his claim that she breaks his family. The board is not just worried about an extra heir. They are worried about shifts in votes, in leverage, in who gets to sit at the head of the table. Her voice shakes, but she forces the question out. If I don't sign, she asks, what happens? Hale's gaze returns to the ring. Then we go to court, he says calmly. We drag your mother's name, your past, your finances into every headline. Your face. Your jobs. Every mistake you've ever made. And while that circus plays out, Mr. Harken here loses the stability he claims to protect. The company suffers. People lose jobs. The board will not let that happen. So they will do what they must. The way he says it makes Rory's skin crawl. Do what they must. Calder's hand curls into a fist at his side. Threatening her in front of me is bold, he says. Hale shrugs lightly. You made your choice when you came here, he says. You put yourself on the wrong side of the door. The second man finally speaks, voice low and flat. We are wasting time, he says. Neighbors heard the door. Hale nods once. Then his gaze locks on Rory. You have one offer, he says. Sign now, walk out of here with protection and enough money to disappear on your own terms. Or stand with him, he nods at Calder, and inherit every enemy he's made, plus a few more. The ring glints on the floor between them, a small circle of metal that somehow weighs more than all of them. Rory's fingers twitch toward it. Her hand moves before her fear can stop it. Rory lunges forward, shoulder screaming in protest, and closes her fingers around the ring. The metal is warm now, warmed by her skin and the heat of three men's attention. Every nerve in her body lights up. She feels the texture of the crest against her palm, the hawk, the shield, the lines her mother once traced without explaining. Hale tenses. The second man shifts his weight, hand dipping inside his jacket. Calder rises from his kneel in one fluid motion, placing himself squarely between Rory and the doorway. The air in the room changes, thick with something electric and dangerous. Think carefully, Hale says. Rory pushes herself to her feet. Her legs tremble, but she refuses to lean on the bed. She stands in the open space, ring clutched tight, shoulder throbbing. The room is too small for the amount of tension inside it. The broken fan clicks overhead like a clock running out. All my life, she says, voice rough, you people were nothing but names in headlines. She looks at Hale. You're bored. Your lawyers. Your buildings with your last name on top. My mother wouldn't even say it out loud. Heir watches her, expression unreadable. She worked double shifts, Rory continues, words gathering strength, cleaned other people's mess while you sat in rooms deciding who deserved to be in your family and who didn't. She drove that route every night for years. No accidents. No close calls. And then one day, right after she told me there was something I needed to know, she dies on a straight highway with no skid marks. Her voice cracks on the last word. She swallows hard, refuses to let tears cloud her eyes. You call that unfortunate, she says. I call it a pattern. Calder's jaw clenches. Heir's smile thins. Miss Rivera, Heir says carefully, grief can twist what we see. Grief didn't put that ring in a showbox and hide it behind blankets, she says. Grief didn't make you show up at my door with a script ready. This isn't about my feelings. It's about what you're afraid of. She opens her palm. The ring gleams under the weak overhead light. What happens if I put this on, she asks. Calder speaks first. You claim your place, he says. In their eyes, in the law's eyes. You become more than a problem to pay off. Heir's tone sharpens. You become a target, he says. Every settlement we offer becomes harder to explain. Every shareholder call gets louder. Every reporter with a grudge starts sniffing around your life. You want that, Miss Rivera. Cameras outside your building. Strangers dissecting your childhood. Rory thinks of her tiny apartment with its thin walls and leaky faucet, of neighbors who keep their heads down and mind their business. She thinks of her mother's funeral, quiet and small, no reporters, no expensive suits, just a few co-workers and a pastor with a soft voice. No, she says. I don't want any of that. Relief flickers across Heir's face. Then let's be reasonable, he starts. But, Rory continues, cutting him off, I want to stop feeling like the whole world gets to decide what happens to me while I just try to keep the lights on. The words surprise even her. They come from somewhere deep, somewhere that has been building for years beneath overdue notices and cheap takeout. Calder's eyes meet hers. For the first time, she sees a flicker of respect there, not for her potential value, but for her refusal to fold. You put that ring on, he says, and there is no going back. You will not get to be invisible again. Rory glances at the cracked mirror on the wall. A woman looks back at her, tired, scared, with makeup smudged under her eyes and a t-shirt that has seen better days. The idea of her face on news sites feels unreal, like a bad joke. Here's the thing, she says slowly. I was never invisible to the people who wanted to use me. I was just easy to ignore. She slides the ring halfway onto her finger and stops. The metal presses against her knuckle, waiting. Heir takes a step forward. Miss Rivera. Calder moves in front of him, blocking his path. You are done giving orders in this room, he says. You don't speak for the board, Heir snaps. No, Calder says. I speak for the person who has the only piece of proof you can't afford to lose. He nods toward Rory's hand. The room shrinks around them. The second suited man shifts again, clearly calculating distances and outcomes. Calder's security man edges closer to the window, sneaking a glance through the cracked glass at the street below. Rory feels all of it without understanding every detail. All she knows is that the moment she pushes the ring fully onto her finger, the life she thought she was begging for every month changes into something else entirely. Her phone buzzes faintly in Calder's pocket. Someone out there is still trying to reach the version of her who was just looking for a blazer on sale. That version is slipping away in real time. This is your last chance at a quiet life, Heir says, voice low and intense now. You walk with me, you sign, you take the money, and this never touches the news. You stay with him, his chin jerks toward Calder, and you will learn how loud a quiet life can get when it explodes. Rory thinks of 9-to-5 jobs that never called her back. Of nights she counted coins to buy laundry soap. Of standing in that mall pretending she belonged. She also thinks of her mother's warning, if a powerful man ever comes for you, don't argue. Don't negotiate. You leave. But there are powerful men on both sides of her now. Leaving is no longer as simple as walking out a door. She looks at Calder. If I put this on, she asks softly, what do you lose? He doesn't look away. Control, he says. Over them. Over the story. Over how this all ends. And what do I gain? His answer is immediate. Leverage, he says. Enough that they can't erase you without burning themselves. Rory takes a breath that feels like it reaches down into all the years she watched her mother work herself to exhaustion for people who never saw her as anything but background. Then she pushes the ring the rest of the way onto her finger. The metal settles into place with a small, final pressure. Every man in the room reacts at once. Heir's face drains of color. The second man's hand tightens inside his jacket. Calder exhales sharply, whether in relief or dread she cannot tell. The air itself seems to shift, like the building has just registered a new name on its list of occupants. Down on the street, a car door slams. Another engine revs. Somewhere in the distance, sirens start to wail, not here yet, but moving. Heir straightens his tie with slow, deliberate fingers. When he speaks, his voice has lost its polite smoothness. Congratulations, Miss Rivera, he says. You just declared war. Rory barely has time to process the words before the glow from a phone screen lights up his face, and his eyes narrow at whatever he reads there, something that makes his head snap up, stare past Calder, and fix on the window with sudden alarm. Who the hell tipped them off, he mutters, as flashing blue and red lights turn the cracked glass into a throbbing wall of color. Blue and red lights explode across the cracked window like someone pressed a siren right against the glass. Everyone in the room reacts at once. Calder's security man curses under his breath, hand still inside his coat. Thomas Hale steps back toward the hall, his smooth control slipping for the first time. The second suited man pivots to the door, checking angles, listening. Rory just stands there with the ring tight on her finger as the light washes over her walls, over her unmade bed, over the cheap curtains she never thought anyone important would see. Who called them? Hale snaps. He pulls his phone up, screen whitening his face in the dim room. His thumb flies across the glass. Whatever he reads makes his jaw clench. This block was flagged the moment your car turned the corner, Mr. Harken, he mutters. You brought a spotlight with you. Calder's gaze flicks to the window, then to Rory. They won't know what they are walking into, he says. Uniforms never do. The sirens wail louder now, the sound bouncing off brick, filling the hallway outside like rolling thunder. Car doors slam. Voices echo up from the street, firm, practiced, calling to each other. Rory's lungs feel too small. If the police come up here and see this door, she says, voice thin, see them, what happens to me? Hale straightens his tie, composure snapping back into place piece by piece. You become a footnote in a police report, he says. A person of interest tied to a private civil dispute. We spin it by morning. The only thing you gain is stress. Calder steps closer to her, still keeping his body between her and the doorway. Or, he says quietly, you let them see you as someone in danger, not someone causing trouble. Rory's heart hammers. And how do I do that? The pounding of boots hits the stairwell now, fast, heavy, coming closer. Someone shouts, second floor. The words shoot straight through her chest. Look at this room, Calder says. Who looks like they belong with lawyers and suits, and who looks like she just had her door kicked in. Rory glances down at herself, worn t-shirt, bare feet, bruising already coloring her shoulder. Then she looks at them, expensive coats, leather shoes, cufflinks that catch the flashing light. Heir and his partner look like they stepped out of a meeting. Calder looks like he walked out of a boardroom and into a crime scene. The contrast tells its own story. Short answers, Calder says. No details they can twist. You say you're scared. You ask for help. You don't sign or agree to anything. You understand. Rory's throat works around air that feels too thick. She nods once. Heir's eyes narrow. If you drag this into the open, Miss Rivera, you will not like how ugly it gets, he says. The boots stop right outside her door. A fist hits the broken frame, loud and official. Police? Open up. For one split second, everyone in the room looks at the same ruined doorway and knows, whoever controls the next 30 seconds will control the story that goes into the first report. Calder is the one who reaches for the lock. He turns it with a steady hand and pulls the door open just enough to reveal the mess: splintered wood, snapped chain, 2 expensive suits, one shaken woman with a ring on her finger she still can't believe is real. 2 officers stand in the hall, hands resting near their holsters, eyes already scanning, noting, judging. One is tall with tired eyes, the other is younger, jaw tight, taking everything in. Evening, the taller one says. His gaze slides over Calder, Heir, the second suited man, then lands on Rory. It lingers. Barefoot, bruised shoulder, wide eyes. We got a call about a disturbance, he continues. Door sounded like it was being forced. Everyone okay in here? Rory's mouth is dry. She looks at Calder for half a second. He does not nod. He does not speak for her. He just waits. No, she says, voice shaking. I'm not okay. The younger officer shifts his stance, attention sharpening. Did someone force their way into your apartment? Rory glances at the broken chain hanging useless from the frame, at the wood cracked near the lock. Yes, she says. Heir clears his throat, stepping forward with a practiced half-smile. Officers, this is a misunderstanding, he says, reaching into his jacket, not fast, but enough to make both officers stiffen. He pauses, then slowly pulls out a leather wallet and flips it open instead of anything worse. Thomas Heir, corporate counsel for the Harken Group. We are here on a civil matter. Emotions ran a bit high. There's no need for. Step back, sir, the taller officer cuts in. Heir freezes, then obeys, taking one smooth step backward. The younger officer says to Rory, do you know these men? She nods once. I met him today, she says, glancing at Calder. Her eyes flick to Heir and his partner, showed up later. I didn't invite them in. The officers trade a look. The tension shifts in the room, just slightly. The taller one takes in the ring on her finger, the cheap furniture, the knocked-out door frame, the distance between her and the suits. "Anybody hurt?" he asks. Rory's shoulder pulses with pain. She doesn't look at it. "My door is," she says weakly. The younger one presses gently. "Did anyone lay hands on you?" Her mind flashes back to Calder grabbing her wrist to yank her out of the way. It was forceful, but it kept the door from slamming into her face. It saved her from being in the direct path when it blew inward. She thinks of Hale's men, of how they watched, calculated, waited. "No," she says. "They broke the door. They came in. They are trying to make me sign something I don't understand." That lands. The taller officer's eyes cut to Hale. "Is that true?" he asks. Hale opens his mouth with another smooth explanation ready, but Calder speaks first. "Her mother worked for my family," he says. "There's a dispute over a document. They showed up with a settlement and muscle. She said no. They didn't accept that." Rory watches the officers process the word settlement. It changes something. "Okay," the taller cop says slowly. "Here's what's going to happen. Everyone's going to keep their hands visible. No one's going to move fast. We are going to step out into the hall and figure out who belongs where and whether any laws have been broken tonight." Hale's smile is tight. "Officers, with respect, this is a confidential corporate situation. There's no criminal." "You forced a door," the younger officer cuts in. "That's not corporate. That's us." The room goes very still. Rory's heart slams, but under the fear there is a small, sharp flicker of something else, a shift. For the first time since Calder stood in her doorway, someone with a badge is treating her apartment like her place, not a meeting room these men can walk in and out of as they please. The taller cop says to her, "Do you want these men to leave your home tonight?" The question is simple. The weight behind it is huge. Rory looks at Hale, at his cool stare and expensive watch, and the promise behind his threats. She looks at Calder, at his steady focus and the stubborn line of his mouth. Both of them are used to calling shots. Both expect her to play a part. "Yes," she says. "I want them out." Hale's eyes chill. Calder's jaw flexes. "Then step into the hall with me," the officer says. "We'll take your statement. They can wait downstairs while we sort this." Rory moves toward the door, every step an effort. As she passes Hale, he leans in just enough that only she can hear. "You can make this easy on yourself," he murmurs. "Or you can drag it out in front of people who don't have the power to save you when the real pressure starts." Rory doesn't answer. She steps into the hall, feels the rough hallway carpet under her bare feet, hears the TV from a distant apartment, the muffled voices of curious neighbors who cracked their doors when the siren started. Her small life is suddenly pressed up against a world of power she never meant to meet. She glances back into the room just in time to see Calder watching her go, his expression unreadable, trapped between letting her speak and wanting to control every word. The officers start moving everyone out one by one, and for a moment, the narrow hallway becomes a thin line between two futures Rory does not understand yet. The first real silence comes hours later, in a conference room that smells like stale coffee and cheap carpet cleaner. Rory sits at a metal table under harsh fluorescent light, the ring still on her finger, her statement already typed and printed in neat black letters on white paper. A clock ticks on the wall, a cheap plastic thing that sounds louder than it should. Her head aches. Her shoulder throbs. Exhaustion hangs on her skin like a heavy coat. Across from her, a detective with kind eyes and a tight bun flips through the report. "You sure you don't want medical to look at that shoulder?" she asks. "I'm fine," Rory says. The lie is small compared to all the ones she's heard tonight. The detective studies her for a moment. "You know who that family is, right?" she asks quietly. "The Harkens. The buildings, the charity events on the local news. They don't like scandals." Rory lets out a thin breath. "I know," she says. "Turns out I'm one." The detective's mouth twitches. "You're a witness right now," she says. "Big difference." Rory's gaze drifts to the mirrored glass on the wall. She knows someone is behind it. Maybe more than one. Watching, listening, weighing what she says against what Heir says, what Calder says, what any security footage shows. "Can I ask you something?" Rory says. "Go ahead." "If I walk out of here and pretend none of this happened," she says slowly, "if I take their money and sign what they put in front of me, and then something happens to me later, does anyone look twice?" The detective does not answer right away. That silence is louder than any siren. "We look," she says finally. "But it's harder when there's paperwork that says you agreed to things. When they can hold up a signed deal and say you were happy. When there's no record of you saying you were scared." Rory swallows. "So this," she says, nodding at the papers, "the tape recorder, the harsh light, this is my record." "Yeah," the detective says. "This is you putting your fear on the books. Making it harder for you to disappear quietly." Rory looks down at the ring. She turns it with her thumb, feeling the grooves of the crest. This small circle of metal has pulled her out of her anonymous life and set her under a fluorescent spotlight. "Do you believe me?" she asks. The detective meets her eyes. "I believe something is off," she says. "And I believe powerful people use civil matter as code when they don't want uniforms around. That's enough for me to take you seriously." There is a knock at the door. The detective stands, gathers the file, and opens it. Calder waits on the other side, hands cuffed loosely in front of him, a uniform at his shoulder. He looks tired for the first time, tie loosened, hair slightly out of place, the calm mask cracked just enough to show strain underneath. "You're done for now," the detective tells Rory. "We'll get you a ride somewhere safe. You got a friend you can stay with?" Rory almost laughs. Her circle is small, co-workers who change every few months, neighbors who nod but keep distance, an aunt 2 states away who already sleeps on a couch. Her mother was the one stable point. "No," she says. "Not really." The detective hesitates, then nods. "We'll figure something out," she says. "Sit tight." She steps out, leaving the door ajar. For a heartbeat, Rory and Calder are alone in the gap between two worlds, hers and his, both cracked open tonight. He steps just close enough that the guard doesn't pull him back. "They are going to make this look like my stunt," he says quietly. "Like I dragged you into a fight you didn't want." Rory gives a tired half-smile. "Didn't you?" His jaw works. "I showed up at your door," he says. "They showed up to clean up their mess and make it yours. There's a difference. You all feel like the same storm from where I'm standing," she says. He glances at the mirrored glass. "They'll push you to settle," he says. "They'll send mediators, counselors, friends of the court. They'll make it sound like peace. They are just trying to keep the house from shaking while they move walls behind the scenes. Rory's head throbs. Why are you warning me? Because you put that ring on in front of them, he says. You didn't just pick my side. You picked the one outcome that hurts everyone with power in that boardroom. That makes you the only person in this mess who doesn't owe them anything yet. She studies him. For all his sharp edges, for all the control he demands, there is something tired in his eyes now, like he has been carrying the weight of his last name for so long he can't remember what it feels like to stand without it. I don't trust you, she says. His mouth lifts in a humorless curve. Good, he says. You shouldn't. He leans in just a fraction. But if you want to survive this with your name still yours, you're going to need someone who knows where the bodies are buried, he says. And the man who killed your mother isn't in that hallway. He's in a penthouse, sleeping like tonight is just another good quarter. The guard tugs his arm. Time's up, the officer says. Calder steps back. His gaze holds hers for one heartbeat longer, a silent promise or a warning, she can't tell. Then he is gone, led down the hall to whatever room rich suspects wait in while lawyers work the phones. Rory sits alone at the metal table, fingers pressed to the ring, listening to the clock tick and wondering how you rebuild a life when the ground under it was never solid in the first place. The board does not wait long to hit back. 3 days later, Rory stands in a glass-walled office that overlooks the city, the skyline cutting sharp lines against a grey afternoon sky. The Harken Group's headquarters lobby downstairs gleams with marble and security gates. Up here, everything smells like cold air and printers. She didn't come by choice. A judge's order, a lawyer she met once, and a phone call she did not feel brave enough to ignore brought her here. Across the long table sits Thomas Hale, flanked by 2 new faces in dark suits. At the far end, a screen shows a grid of older men and women in video tiles, board members dialing in from wherever their houses and vacation places sit. Calder stands near the window, hands in his pockets, eyes on the glass instead of the people behind him. He looks like he is in his element and trapped at the same time. Ms. Rivera, Hale says, voice smooth again, thank you for agreeing to this mediation. Rory wants to say she didn't agree, that she was told, not asked, but she lets it go. Her throat is already tight. She can feel the judge's words hovering over this room like a warning. Show willingness to resolve or risk being painted uncooperative. On the screen, an older man with silver hair clears his throat. We are here to protect the legacy this company represents, he says. Your claims, Ms. Rivera, threaten thousands of jobs, billions in assets, and the stability of markets that rely on our work. Her claims threaten. The language turns her existence into a problem report. She looks down at the ring. The metal flashes under the office lights. The crest feels heavier in this room than it did in her kitchen. I didn't ask for any of this, she says quietly. Hale leans forward. And yet here we are, he says. Your mother made choices. Our former chairman made choices. Now we have to decide how to prevent those choices from destroying what we have built. Calder finally turns from the window. What you have built, he says, is a structure held together by secrets and fear. That's why one ring has everyone shaking. A murmur ripples through the voices on the screen. Calder, a woman in one tile says sharply, this meeting is not about your grievances with your father. It's exactly about that, he replies. He created 2 heirs and only acknowledged one. He wrote a will and buried it. He left a ring with a woman he lied to and trusted his lawyers to clean it up. Now his lies have a face, and you're all looking for a way to erase her without staining the carpet. All eyes swing back to Rory. She feels exposed, like a specimen under glass. Heir slides a folder across the table toward her. "This is our offer," he says. "A substantial financial settlement, a fund in your name, relocation assistance, and a statement acknowledging you as a valued part of the Harken philanthropic community. In exchange, you withdraw all claims to succession, agree not to contest any existing estate documents, and sign a non-disclosure agreement regarding family matters." Rory opens the folder. Numbers spill across the page, more zeros than she has ever seen lined up behind her name. For a second, the room blurs. That money could wipe out every bill, every debt, every sleepless night. It could buy a home that isn't held together by tape and hope. It could erase the constant hum of financial panic in her head. It could also bury her mother's truth. "What happens if I say no?" she asks, voice soft but clear. Heir's expression does not change. "Litigation," he says. "Years of it. You will live in and out of courtrooms. Your history will be dissected in public. Every mistake, every late payment, every argument you ever had with a neighbor becomes ammunition. Your mother's personal life becomes a circus. Your job prospects shrink under the weight of your search results. We win in the end, because institutions always do. And you lose years you can't get back." Silence falls. Even the hum of the air system seems to fade. Calder breaks it. "Or," he says, "you accept that she has a right to her name without signing her life away. You bring her into the line of succession where she belongs. You adjust shares, seats, votes. We take the hit together and rebuild stronger." The board members react like he suggested burning the building down. Voices overlap across the speakers. "Impossible. The markets, our charter, we cannot legitimize." Rory watches the storm swirl around her. She is the center of this argument, but they talk over her like she is an item on an agenda. She lifts her hand. The ring catches the light, draws eyes back. "You're all talking about me like I'm a number on a sheet," she says. "Like I'm a risk to manage. But my mother didn't keep this ring because she wanted to hurt a stock price. She kept it because she believed, somewhere under all his lies, that your chairman owed us more than silence." Her voice cracks on the last word, but she keeps going. "She didn't ask you to hand me a company," she says. "She asked you, in that letter you never let her finish, to keep me safe. She died on a road that doesn't bend, right after she told me there was something I needed to know. I'm not leaving this room with a check and a gag and a promise to forget her." Heir's jaw tightens. "What do you want, then?" he asks. The question hangs heavy. Rory looks at Calder. He stands still, watching, not rescuing her with an answer. For once, he seems willing to let her define the terms. "I want my mother's name cleared," she says. "I want it on record that she was not a problem you had to clean up, but someone your founder wronged. I want protection in writing, not just money. Real security. Not your men at my door in the night. And I want a seat at whatever table decides how this story is told, even if I never step in your boardroom again." The board erupts again, protests spilling through the speakers. "That's absurd. She has no experience. We cannot grant power based on." Calder lifts a hand. "You gave power to worse men for less," he says. "You let my father run this place like his private kingdom for decades. Now his choices have consequences. You can either keep pretending money fixes everything, or you can adapt. Rory's pulse thunders. She has no idea if what she just asked for is even possible in their world. But she knows one thing: she will not trade her mother's life for a payout and a line in a press release. Heir leans back, eyes narrowed, calculating. You realize, he says slowly, that if we agree to any of this, you become a symbol. People will use your name to attack this company. To attack us. I've been used by this company since before I was born, Rory replies. At least this time, I want a say in how. For a moment, no one speaks. The city spreads out beyond the glass like another kind of board. Somewhere, phones buzz. Somewhere else, markets move. In this room, the balance shifts by inches. One of the older women on the screen, quiet until now, leans forward. We recessed once when your father hid an affair, she says. We covered it. We paid for silence. That silence is what is killing us today. Her gaze moves to Rory. I am tired of paying for mistakes with other people's lives, she says. Give the girl protection. Give her a voice. We structure it in a way that keeps the company stable. But we stop pretending she is a line item. Murmurs ripple again. Some angry, some resigned. The fault lines in this family of money finally show. Rory feels the room tilting, ever so slightly, toward something new. Then Heir's phone buzzes again. He glances at the screen and his face changes, all boardroom calm vanishing in one heartbeat. Turn on the news, he says sharply. The screen splits. A live feed appears, the front of the building they are standing in, flooded with cameras, microphones, and bright lights. At the bottom of the broadcast, a headline scrolls in bold letters. Harken heir and secret daughter at center of estate scandal. Rory's breath catches. Her own face flashes on the screen, a photo from her social media profile she barely remembered existed. Next to it, Calder's. Under both, a photo of her mother. The privacy they were arguing about is already gone. The glass walls suddenly feel like they are closing in. Rory stares at the images on the screen, at herself next to men and buildings she only knew as headlines a week ago. Reporters crowd the sidewalk outside, shouting questions at the closed doors. Someone must have leaked the story, maybe a cop, maybe a clerk, maybe someone in this very room who thought pressure would make her fold. Instead, the world is watching. Who authorized this? One board member demands through the speaker. No one, Heir says tightly. We've been containing this. Someone jumped the gun. Calder's gaze drifts from the screen to Rory. You wanted public, he says quietly. This is as public as it gets. Her stomach twists. She didn't post this. She didn't call the press. But she did make a statement. She did refuse the quiet path. The detective warned her, once her fear is on the record, it's harder to erase. That warning is now flashing on every major news channel. Ms. Rivera, Heir says, voice controlled but hard, do you understand what this means? Strangers will talk about your life for weeks. Every photo, every post, every piece of your online history becomes part of this story. You cannot go back from this. Rory laughs once, a tired sound. I've been told I can't go back so many times this week, she says. There was never a way back. Only forward. She looks at the screen. At her mother's picture, centered under the words hidden child. The world is already building a version of this story without her. If she stays quiet now, their version becomes the truth. She takes a breath and speaks into the heavy air. Then we stop pretending this is about keeping secrets, she says. You can't stuff this back into a vault. So you decide, do you want to stand next to me on that stage and admit what happened? Or do you want to fight me until the only thing people remember about the Harken name is how hard you tried to bury one woman and her kid? The board members talk over each other again. Calder's eyes stay on her, sharp, assessing. Heir pinches the bridge of his nose like he has a headache the size of the city. This isn't how we handle crises, he mutters. Maybe that's the problem, Calder says. Rory steps away from the table, closer to the glass. From up here, the crowd looks small, a cluster of ants with cameras. But she knows how loud those voices can get. How fast a story can jump from one screen to millions. Listen, she says, turning back to the room. People out there already think rich families play by different rules. If they see me vanish after this, if I slip, or settle quietly, and never speak again, they'll fill in the blanks on their own. They'll think exactly what I think, that someone got rid of a problem. Her voice steadies. But if they see you stand next to me and say, we did wrong. We are fixing it. We are protecting her, not silencing her, that hits different. You don't look weak. You look like you finally grew a spine. One of the older men scoffs, but he is not as loud as before. The tide in the room is shifting. Fear is still there, but so is calculation, and the sense that the old playbook is failing. Calder speaks up, his tone cool and clear. She is right, he says. The market punishes lies more than it punishes uncomfortable truths. We can drag this out and bleed slowly in headlines and lawsuits, or we can cut once, clean, and start rebuilding with a story that says we don't hide our mistakes behind closed doors anymore. Heir lets out a slow breath. You're asking this board to endorse their own exposure, he says. I'm asking you not to make the same mistake twice, Calder replies. My father hid her. You can be the ones who stop hiding her. The woman who spoke up before leans closer to her camera. Put together a framework, she says to Heir. Protection order. Public acknowledgement. A limited advisory role tied to community initiatives. We keep the company stable, and we stop pretending she doesn't exist. Heir's jaw works. You understand what this will do to internal politics, he says. We'll handle it, she answers. Or maybe it's time some of those politics shook. The decision does not land all at once. It comes in pieces, reluctant nods, muted agreements, a few still angry protests. But within minutes, the direction is clear. They will not erase Rory. They will absorb her. Protect her, publicly, because now the world knows her face. Rory feels none of the victory she thought might come with this. There is no triumph, no rush. Just a deep, bone-level tiredness and a strange, fragile sense of space opening where fear used to sit alone. Heir closes the folder in front of her and replaces it with a new one. This is a draft, he says. We'll adjust language. But it includes protective detail under our expense, a formal statement of acknowledgement, and your role as co-chair on a foundation named after your mother. No ownership claim, no voting rights on the main board. But you get a voice where it touches the people at the bottom of the chain. Rory runs her finger over her mother's printed name on the first page. Seeing it there, not as a footnote, but as a title, squeezes her chest. This doesn't fix what they did to her, she says quietly. No, Calder agrees. But it keeps them from doing the same thing to you. She lifts her head. I'll sign, she says, after my lawyer reads every line. And after the statement is written in a way that actually says something, not just we regret any confusion. A corner of Calder's mouth lifts. You'll fit right in with the worst of us, he says. Hale nods once, accepting the terms. We'll have drafts to you by morning, he says. The press will get a holding statement today. No more leaks from our side. Rory looks at the ring one more time. She could take it off now, lock it in some box, never wear it again. But as she watches the crowd outside grow bigger, as she thinks of the girl she was a week ago, tired, hungry, counting coins, she understands that the weight on her finger is not just theirs anymore. It's hers. She turns back to the window, imagining the people watching from phones and laptops, hungry for drama, for justice, for some sign that the world is not completely stacked against them. In her mind, she speaks to them like she is back in her tiny apartment, talking into a mic instead of a room full of strangers in suits. If you've ever felt small next to people with big names and bigger money, she thinks, this story is for you. Because sometimes the thing they hid to protect themselves is the same thing that can break their grip. And now, if you've been hooked all the way to this point, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next powerful story that might speak directly to your own life. Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you do if you found out your whole life was built on a secret like this? Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to see today.